definitely is. This is the first kind of event I've done publicly, but may as well start somewhere. So if you aren't aware of who I am, my name is Daniel Loftus. I am a genealogist based down in Cork, and I suppose I've been doing genealogy for 6 years, and for a long time it was my only friend in life, because it wasn't a big thing that I had. So it was one thing that I used to kind of keep myself company, where looking into my own family's history and my own family story. But I could only really complete one half of my family tree, and that was my father's. I couldn't do my mother's because she was adopted, so I could only trace her adopted family. And about 5 years ago, my mum got a phone call from Tusla, where she got a phone call talking about her adoption, and about a year later in the post she got her birth cert in the post, and the location of birth said Bessborough House. Now at the time I did not know what Bessborough was, and after like a quick Google and a quick glance, I saw it was another baby home, and X amount of people died there. But I don't think at the time I fully grasped kind of what a mother and baby home was, the history, the story behind it, and why it's so talked about today as a topic. So that was one thing. About a couple of years later, I had gotten a text from a cousin over in England who, me being the family genealogist, would always come to me if there was a surname that came up and said, "Oh, would you please look and see if they're related to us?" And it was relating to a young infant named John Patrick Loftus, who died in 1937 in Tuam. And I looked and I said, turns out we aren't. And that stayed in my mind for a number of months afterwards. And then once I interviewed a genealogist, about a couple of months later, for a series I do, I always ask my guests one question, and that is, what does genealogy mean to you? And her reply was to give a voice to the forgotten. And that sentence stayed with me for a couple of days afterwards, because I had been wanting to do a project for a very long time in some shape or form. And with all of those things combining into one, that led to me creating Project Infant, which is a searchable database for all the names of children who died in mother and baby homes. Because as I was starting my research into these homes, I realized that there really wasn't, you just saw numbers. So you saw 1,090, 804. You just saw numbers. You didn't see any human aspect. You didn't see any personal aspect. There was nothing giving these, babies a name, because in the report they were just numbers. And to me, they were more than numbers. They were people. Every one of them has a story, and they deserve to be told and known. And that's what I aim to do. Now, when I first started out, I didn't really have a full idea of what I was doing, but as I, spent many hours researching, I, then became a bit better at researching, and found the number of deaths for a number of homes. So I've covered 7 homes as of now, which being Tuam, Bessborough, Seanross, Kilrush, Temple Hill. Yeah. Okay, that should be better. So I looked at a number of homes already, and I've been able to cover and upload the names of about 3,300 infants and mothers to the website, and making them available for the public to access. And I feel it's necessary because there are still so many names that are unknown. For example, St. Patrick's Home in Navan Road, which had over 3,600 deaths. Currently, right now, we are researching those, and we've just done shy of 1,000. And for every name found, there's another name remembered and available to the public to actually remember. And I thought, well, it's all well and good, having these names available to search for, but, keeping them in everyone's memory. I do these daily social tributes where I post the names of every child that died on a particular day. So for June 9th or June 8th, you know, there'll be a daily thing going out on the relevant social media. But the main reason I'm doing this is because there are so many stories left untold, and it made me realise that, you know, my mum could easily have been one of the many she could have been the 924th child that died in Bessborough. You know, there was always that thing lingering over me that I could easily not be here had she not survived. So there are so many stories that I want to try and tell, but it'll be a fair while before I'll be able to do that fully. But I've also been able to bring answers to those boarded out and adopted from London baby homes, because I've been able to trace their family history to an initiative that I called No One Left Behind. Because originally when I started this, I thought, okay, I'm going to look at those that died. But then as I realised, you know, the living, you know, survivors of these homes deserve to be factored in somehow too, and that's how I do it. I research these people's history and try and give them a sense of who they are for something that seems to be difficult to obtain, be it through TUSLA or whatever agency it may be. So obviously the list that I had covered about 48 homes. I'm still working away on them, but when I saw that there were 182 homes, it made me realise the volume and the size of the whole system, I suppose, that worked. And bearing that in mind, it made me realise the hidden homes, as I call them, or, you know, ones that weren't really as known. So like if you went looking in the newspapers, you know, you'd see stuff about Bessborough, Seamus, Abbey, Tuam, but you wouldn't see one, let's say, for Northcote Avenue and Rathdown. There's literally nothing on it. So, you know, it's looking at every single home that I can humanly do. And it's not just me that does this research. I've been able to accumulate a team of about 15 volunteers who see the same mission, and they see the same purpose, and they see the same reason for doing this, and that is to try and, you know, bring these names to light and make sure they're all remembered. And like, we're all volunteers, we're just doing this in our spare time, but we all believe in making these names available for people to find and to use and remember, because it's just, even though Tuam got the rightful recognition being international, there are still so many homes that have yet to be covered. And if I can do my little bit, even though it might be the tiniest bit that I can do, I will do it. So I suppose that, and it doesn't come without its hardships, of course, because there are times when I've had to step away from doing the research as it'll get a bit too much. For example, I was saying to Mum before I actually came up here, so there was one infant that had died in Kilrush Nursery, that died aged 5 seconds old back in 1929, and obviously stillborns were not accounted for. So the fact that John Purcell was his name, and the fact that he was recorded was brilliant, but it stayed with me thinking, how many more are there that haven't been remembered, that haven't been added, that aren't even covered or part of the general number. I suppose in a roundabout way, because I am quite good at doing that, the main reason I want to do this is because I want to add a human layer to this. These babies are more than just numbers. They were people, and they deserve to be remembered, and so do their families. Because I think if many people had done their family tree, we all might find something, and we all might find that we have more in common with each other than we might originally think. So, I will obviously be here for a while after, so if you have any questions for me about my project or want to ask me anything about it, I'll be happy to answer them, but I think that's me, so thank you.